Sometimes a man is wrong. Oh, she took 5 steps. Oh, and she was gone. Oh, it's one of those times. Oh, it's one of those times.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier, and I'm happy to be here with you to talk about, well, it's the minimum wage. And yeah, it's one of those times, quite all right. And I do want to thank the band that is Adam Ate the Apple in the Southern Tier. They're a great band, and I use their intro as part of my intro, their song. So I want to talk about the minimum wage, because there's just so much confusion that's going on out there about it. There are so many people who have no idea what's actually happening with this. And it sounds really great. I mean, it sounds fantastic. I've been following this issue since 2013. 2013, I've been talking about this. Since 2013, we've seen progressives trying to push forward this idea of a minimum wage of $15 or more. And it's just insane. And it's insane because it's going to hurt the entire nation. And I'm going to tell you exactly why I think that. I'm going to give you the full details. The things that aren't often talked about when people talk about the minimum wage, like what it actually does. And we have data. There is proof on this. So let's actually look at what it really is. There's going to be some numbers here, but follow me because it's worth it. It's important. It makes a difference. Now, the bill in question happens to be H.R. 582. It's called Raise the Wage Act. And one of the things that always pisses me off is you never hear politicians, you never see news media that actually tell you what the bill is. It's H.R. 582. And this bill, which was passed by the House of Representatives, all is purely partisan. This thing is absolutely nothing but partisan. Democrats took a break from picking on Pelosi and AOC and Presley and Tlaib and Omar. And they're having a battle on who actually runs the Democratic Party. But they took a break. They took a break to pass the Minimum Wage Act. And it's every single one of the Democrats except for 6, in particular my representative, Anthony Brindisi of the New York 22nd District, was one of the few that actually voted against it. And Republicans, except for 3, all voted against this. Even Justin Amash, the independent libertarian, voted against this because of the damage this is going to do to the nation. And, you know, I want something to be very clear right up front about this bill. This is the text of the bill. You can look this up at congress.gov for yourself. One thing you will see in this bill, which is not very long, is that it does not take into account the impact of what's going to happen to every single person who gets the increase. It doesn't say a word about it anywhere in there because they don't care. This is going to affect people and their taxes, and it's going to be pretty significant. And there's some other misinformation I want to get right up front about this. There are people who are like Representative Anthony Brindisi who've come out and they made little statements. Oh, Mr. Brindisi on his Facebook page, you know, I didn't think this would be fair. I didn't think this was good. This is a bad bill for people in upstate New York. Except Mr. Brindisi thinks people forgot that back in November of 2018, he was the one who said,
I'm going to ask my first follow-up. I heard you say that you support a minimum wage.
Orders of the Farm Bureau and agricultural policies in the state every single year I've been in office.
I'm going to ask my first follow-up. I heard you say that you support a minimum wage, but do you support a living wage?
Do I support a living? Absolutely. I think people should be able to live and work and make a good living. Unfortunately, as I had mentioned.
Okay, so I just want to emphasize, Mr. Brindisi said in November of 2018, as was reported by C-SPAN and WSKG, he believes in a living wage. That's what he believes in. And he also said that he believes that the minimum wage at $15 an hour is too much. It will cause too many problems. It will disrupt lives throughout all of America. Okay, so if he's saying on one side that he is believing that $15 an hour is too much, and he says he believes in a living wage, well, guess what? The actual living wage calculation for Oneida County, where he lives in, part of the New York 22nd District, is actually at a minimum, about $25.36. That's for one person, one adult. If you have two people, just two people, one person working, it's $17.50. If you have one kid, it's $21. It goes up from there. So I don't understand where politicians, and this is part of the confusion we see whenever it comes down to talking about things like the minimum wage and a living wage. Progressives like Anthony Brindisi use these terms interchangeably. They make it sound really appealing. You want a living wage? I support a living wage. That's what Anthony Brindisi and many other progressives say. They support a living wage. Then when it comes to actually looking at the numbers, they say, oh yeah, we got to increase the minimum wage. And then they actually look at what are the results of that. But they're lying to you. Because Mr. Brindisi, like many other politicians around this nation, they're playing games with the words. Oh, support a living wage. That's $21 an hour. But he doesn't support a $15 minimum wage. I have to ask you, what does that make sense? He does it. He supports a higher rate, but doesn't support a lower rate. At the same time, all of the Democrats, including those who are running for president, want to increase taxes, everyone's taxes. Bernie Sanders is talking about a 200 to 300% increase in taxes to pay for Medicare for all. That's literally $40 trillion. That means that everyone's taxes would be tripled. So they want to increase the amount of taxes, and they want to increase your pay, maybe, but they're not going to help you with any of that. And something that people don't talk about this, and I'm going to give you some numbers here so we can really think this through. Right now in America, did you know that the average person, actually not even the average person, there are literally, if you are working right now, 95% of every single person who works for a living will not be affected by a minimum wage increase. Will not. It's not me saying that. No. That's the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Based on their 2018 numbers, literally the only people who are at or below the minimum wage is 2.1% of the population, or 1.7 million workers. That's it. 1.7 million workers. All of this, everything that's going on, it's for 1.7 million people. That's less than the population of New York City. That's what we're talking about. The entire nation is going to have its economic system thrown into a hay baler for 1.7 million people. The population of New York City. Population of LA. Now you're thinking, well, Mike, that's just not right. That doesn't make sense. But that is the facts. Just like when you hear Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Anthony Brindisi say that, hey, people are working 2 and 3 and 4 jobs. It's not true. The numbers are not there. The facts do not back it up. I am sure they feel like that's correct. I'm sure that Anthony Brindisi feels like a living wage is a great idea and doesn't understand what he's talking about when the minimum wage of 15 is even less. And that's still a bad idea. But we're talking about 2%. 2% of everyone. And almost every single one of those people, according to the data from the CBO and from and also from the Bureau of Labor Statistics tells us, Bureau of Labor Statistics, I'll start there, it's actually people who are young, under 25. And it doesn't matter what your race is, whether you're black, white, Hispanic, the numbers are essentially the same. Doesn't matter if you have college or not. Other than, as long as you got a high school degree, your chances of getting minimum wage pay is exactly the same as everyone else. If you're a man, a woman, doesn't make a difference. What does make a difference? The only thing that makes a difference is how old are you? If you have experience, which means generally you're over 25, you get paid more than minimum wage. If you're under 25, the odds are you're going to get paid minimum wage. That's it. Which, you know what? You don't know anything. Of course you get paid minimum wage. That's why it's the minimum. You don't know anything. You don't have experience. Why would someone pay a premium for you? And that's just, these are just the numbers that no one wants to tell you. They make it sound like the minimum wage, everyone is going to get more money. No, you won't. No, you will not. The 16-year-old that's going to be working right next to you, the 18-year-old that's going to be working right next to you, they'll get more money. They'll get as much money as you get, but you won't get a raise. You won't get a single dime. And when you wonder about it, how does that affect everyone? What does this mean? Well, I'm going to jump back in time because as I told you, back in 2013, I started doing articles on this. In fact, here's my article from 2013. I was talking at the time about Senator Elizabeth Warren makes sense for a re-election campaign. I wrote the article on March 20th of 2013 at the mvass.com site, okay, on the Voss Political Commentary. And guess what? It's not just me saying these things. Besides Dan Greenfield, I'm going to go to Christine D. Romer. She is the former chairwoman of President Obama's Council on Economic Advisors. And she wrote an article on March 2nd of 2013 in the New York Times telling everyone that a $9 minimum wage was a bad idea and that it would hurt poor people. That's Obama's administration. During his administration, his choice of the president of the Economic Council saying don't raise the minimum wage to $9. Now, you can tell me, well, Mike, you're just being biased. You know what? Those are Democrats on a Democratic-leaning newspaper, the New York Times, in 2013. You want to blame it on Trump? You want to blame it on Republicans? No, you can't. That's Democrats who are saying that. And you can look up the article and look up the quote. And then again, in 2015, I came back to this issue because it won't go away. Democrats believe that lying to people makes it more interesting. And I addressed it in the article on January 21st of 2015. What does the proposed increase in the minimum wage really mean to New Yorkers? And in that article, I was going over it. Now, mind you, in 2013, Elizabeth Warren was talking about a $22 minimum wage. Obama's people, the Obama administration's chief counsel, said no to a $9 minimum wage. And we see Governor Cuomo here. Everyone finds this. The CBO in 2014 said we would lose 1 million jobs if you raise the minimum wage to $10. Let me remind you, the CBO, the government, under Obama, did a study, said, hey, what happens if we raise the minimum wage to $10.10? Not the $22 that Elizabeth Warren used to get reelected, not the $15 an hour that progressives used to get elected in New York State. We're talking about $10. What would happen? 1 million people would lose their jobs. And the Texas A&M also did a study on this. What did they find? Okay, they state in their article, our findings are consistent across all three data sets, indicating that job growth declines significantly in response to increases in the minimum wage. However, we do not find a corresponding reduction in the level of employment, particularly in specifications that include state-specific time trends. Let's go on. David Newmark of the University of California. Most studies of the effect of minimum wage on the income distribution in the United States suggest that higher minimum wage does little to reduce poverty. Some low-skilled workers lose their jobs and others fail to find work because of the higher wage floor. And then there's James Schrager of the University of Chicago Booth School of Business. Quote, it depends on your definition of small business. If it's a neighborhood restaurant or hardware store, then yes, it could have quite an impact. But if your small business is a technology startup, then probably less so, as you're not likely to employ as many entry-level employees. What are we seeing? 2013, 2015, today. Everyone who actually understands economics, which is not Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, but everyone who actually understands economics, everyone who has studied this in every university, the University of Chicago, Texas A&M, the University of California, the University of Washington, which I'm going to get to, every single one of them says, this will hurt poor people. It doesn't help anyone. No one wins in this. No one. And that's consistent every single time. When I'll come back to what the CBO said for 2018 when they looked at it. They expect that there will be 3.7 million people who will lose their jobs for a $15 minimum wage. Remember, they're saying that 3.7 million people will lose their jobs. Only 1.7 million people make minimum wage or less. More people than actually get minimum wage will lose their jobs. That's the truth about minimum wage. More people will be hurt and will not work because of the minimum wage. That got to affect somebody. And you're telling me, Mike, well, you just don't know what you're talking about. You're missing it. This is CBS. CBS. Again, we're talking about people who are very liberal. CBS News. New York City restaurants cutting staff hours as minimum wage hits $15 an hour. That's from January of 2019 in New York State, where they raised the minimum wage to $15 an hour. And guess what? What does businesses have to say? The New York City Hospitality Alliance did a survey of 574 restaurants. 75% say that they're going to cut hours. Can you think of that? 75% are going to cut their hours. 47% said they're going to get rid of jobs altogether. And 87% said that they are going to increase their prices. As the one guy that they were interviewing in this, Mr. Bloomstein, said, so as a result of the minimum wage hike, it will cost me more to dine out. It's not great for labor. It's not great for the people who invest in our restaurants and own them. And it's not great for the public. This is the reality of minimum wage. We've already seen in New York City, not only have they already cut jobs, they're going to fire people and they're going to cut more hours. And the cost is going up. This is what minimum wage does to you. No one has succeeded at this. Every single study has shown this. Every single time. What about in Washington State? You know, the big target of it all. Because you say, well, Mike, it's really not that bad because I'm going to make more money. I'm going to have more money in my pocket, and that means I can spend more money. And if I happen to be part of that 1.7 million people who are going to get paid more, well, it's good for them, right? And everyone else, well, everyone else is making enough. Well, let's actually think about that. See, again, I'll go back to Washington State. They had a study, February 6th of 2019, this year. University of Washington did a study on this, a paper. Guess what happens when you increase the minimum wage? The most common strategic, where is it? There it is. And this is talking about childcare. You have to go to work. Yay, you're getting $15 an hour. And now you're going off to work and someone has to watch your kid. And what happens when that happens? The most common strategic response reported by businesses has been to raise prices or fees of child tuition and reduce hours of or number of staff. That's it. It's going to cost you more, and they're going to get rid of their staff. They're either going to cut their hours or they're going to get rid of them altogether. That is the most common thing that has happened in Seattle, where they have run with a minimum wage $15 an hour. So you have more money in your pocket, but everything you use costs more money. It's going to cost more for your child care. It's going to cost more for your food. It's going to cost more to transport, to go to and from work. It's going to cost more to get food, to eat at lunch, or if you go out to a restaurant, whether it's a McDonald's or anyone else. And those companies are going to try and get rid of employees and automate. You go into a local Walmart, you notice that they have those automated teller lines. Those are employees that got fired because Walmart can't afford the $15 minimum wage. And guess what, folks? Here's the best part of it. No, as I said, this bill does not include any help for anybody on paying your taxes, which Democrats say they're going to increase. And nowhere in here does it say that you're going to get any help whatsoever with this. Well, guess what everyone forgets? If you are getting just minimum wage, if you're part of that 1.7 million people in America that make minimum wage, 2% of America, that means you're making $13,960 and you're under poverty, which is $16,240. And if you get the $15 minimum wage, your taxes will double. Because if you make minimum wage, you pay $1,670 in taxes at a 12% tax bracket. That's right now. If your wages go up to $15, you're going to pay $3,456 in taxes. That is an increase of 107%. You're going to pay an extra $1,786 in taxes. That's for the 2% who actually are at minimum wage. But here's the problem. Your food stamps are gone. Your government aid is gone because you're making more money than is poverty. You'll be making more money, which is about $22,000 is the limit. You're making too much money. So all the government will stop paying and helping you. If you're having help with paying your rent, that won't happen anymore. If you're getting food stamps to help feed your family and yourself, you lose it. Millions of people will lose. Millions, 5 million people estimated, will lose government benefits to help 1.7 million people. 2.5 times as many people are going to be hurt by the minimum wage that are going to be helped by it. And that's just the tip of the iceberg on this. It gets worse. Now I'm being real brief here and I'm trying to get this all out there. And I know there's a lot of numbers here and I've just been going through it, and all the links will be in the description of this so you can look at this yourself. But I want you to think about it. The next time that you hear one of these politicians, whether it be a Anthony Brindisi, or it happens to be a Nancy Pelosi, or it happens to be a Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and they're out there and they're telling you that the $15 minimum wage is going to be great. I want you to remember something. When the cost of child care goes up, whether or not you are on minimum wage, then you're not getting helped. When you get your food stamps, if you have them, and they get cut, it's not going to help you. When the cost of everything you do goes up, it doesn't help you. When you get fired from your job because they have to raise the prices and they're losing customers, or the business shuts down because they can't afford this, that doesn't help you. It won't make your life any better. And it has not worked in Seattle. It has not worked in New York City. It has not worked anywhere that they have done this social experiment. Because that's what it is. It is an experiment in socialism. The government is deciding what you get paid, what you are worth, not how experienced you are, not how good you do your job. This is the government saying, this is what you deserve. We have decided, because the government is smarter than you are. The government is smarter than people who own businesses. And they are more than willing to hurt you, to take more away in your taxes, to take away the hours that you work, to take away money out of your pocket, because it helps their election. I don't know. It upsets me. Maybe it doesn't upset you. Maybe you think I'm wrong. I will have all the data there. You can look it up for yourself. Or you can just listen to people like Anthony Brindisi, as he says he believes in a living wage, which is $22 an hour, and then votes against a $15 an hour. I'm not surprised that progressives are very angry with Anthony Brindisi right now, because they don't know what he's doing. He says he believes in them, and he believes in a $22 an hour, $22 an hour pay, but votes against $15. The man is confused. I would love to hear him answer this and explain it very clearly, because it makes no sense. Neither do any of the other Democrats. But I'll leave it at that, and I hope everyone enjoys it, and we'll talk again very, very soon. Until later, this has been Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier, here on No Soundbites Allowed.